So, guys, I have this problem. It's a pretty severe problem, a mental problem. It's not depression, it's not anxiety, it's not ADHD or bipolar disorder or schizophrenia or anything like that. No, what I have is a problem that I'm wondering if I'm the only one who suffers from it, or if maybe some of you guys out there have it as well. And this problem is what I like to call internalized boomerism. Now, internalized boomerism seems to manifest itself in a number of different ways, typically with relation to one's lifestyle. And so, to give you an example, if you're a young man, a young adult, I'm 36 years old, so if you're in a similar kind of age bracket to me, then you've probably got hobbies which traditionally probably would have been seen as somewhat juvenile or childish. Things like video games, things like perhaps tabletop games as well, things like Warhammer, or card games like Magic the Gathering and stuff like that. Whatever floats your boat, basically, whatever it is you like to do in your free time. Do you ever get this nagging voice in your head telling you, this is childish, you should be acting like an adult? Say if you're somebody who likes to watch Marvel slop, MCU films, and I used to enjoy Marvel films, to be honest, until 2020 when my eyes were open to a number of things, and I began to see them as just a way to infantilize adults, basically. But, some people still watch them. I still enjoy the occasional superhero film. And of course, related to that is things like comic books and graphic novels. But do you ever look at those things and have that voice tell you that this is childish? You shouldn't be spending your time like this. You shouldn't be spending your money on these things. You should be doing what adults do, whatever that happens to be. You'd spend your money on redoing the bathroom or redoing the kitchen or, whatever boomers used to do with their money before the internet. Or maybe, like men back then would spend their time working on cars or something like that. It would be something that's seen as just being a more adult and mature way of spending your time and money. Perhaps you would invest your hard-earned money on a new grill, a new barbecue in the backyard, or maybe lots of power tools or stuff like that. That's I think that's probably what people would have. That's what men would have done back then. In the boomers' heyday, I guess, when they were young, when they were working, when they were making lots of cash. That's probably what they were doing. There wasn't as much emphasis on collecting action figures or something like that. And back then, if you were to publicly declare that that was your hobby, it would raise a few eyebrows. It'd get some funny looks. You would be a joke. You would be comic book guy from The Simpsons, basically. But now grown men who collect comic books and toys and action figures, they're a dime a dozen, a penny a pound. And I'm not judging, people do have hobbies. I myself, I recently sold lots and lots of comic books. I had a big box full of them, but I sold them all just to get some money and to make some room. I do still have some on my shelf. I'm particularly fond of 2000 AD comics. You'll know 2000 AD as the home of Judge Dredd. You've almost certainly heard of Judge Dredd, even if you haven't heard of the more obscure characters from that publisher. But, I like them. I've got some action figures as well. I don't keep them on display. Again, that's my internalized boomerism coming to the fore, I think. I keep them in a cupboard, away from public view, out of sheer embarrassment, if I'm honest. Which sucks, it sucks to have that little boomer voice in the back of your mind or sitting on your shoulder judging what you're doing. And I know it's a silly, stupid thing to, you should be able to just enjoy your hobbies and not have to worry about some imaginary presence looking down on you for what you're doing. I'd wonder where this comes from. I wonder if it's due to me having been raised by boomers. Now, I was raised well. I had a nice childhood. It was very stable. I had good parents who were together the whole time. They always looked after us. They made sure that we had everything we needed. We weren't spoiled. We did have to wait for birthdays and Christmases to get what we wanted, but we did always get what we wanted. So it was a nice childhood. I'm not saying there was any, real harsh judgment on their part. And to be honest, I think they wouldn't make, my parents wouldn't make any kind of harsh judgments on any hobbies or anything. I mean, I've not told them about, my action figure collection or anything like that. But, even if I did, my mum especially would just be like, oh, well, if you enjoy it, that's fine. So they're very accepting and very open to a lot of this stuff. My mum enjoys superhero films. She enjoyed the Marvel films when they were, the MCU films when they were in their heyday. She enjoyed Batman and Superman films and, Wonder Woman, all that. All the stuff I liked, she liked as well. So it's not like it's a direct imprint from my parents, as individuals. It's just a general idea of some kind of boomer-coded entity that haunts me, basically. And it's not just in hobbies as well. It comes out in other ways too. So back when the boomers were young and they were working full-time and they were, they had mortgages and stuff like that, there was like an agreement in place, wasn't there, between the system and the boomers. It was basically, they were told, look, just, get an education, get a job, pay your mortgage, trust the system, watch the BBC, or, if you're in another country, whatever your state broadcaster is, watch that and trust everything that it says. And as long as you do all those things, you can have a house, you can have a couple of cars, you can go abroad every year if you want to, or, and there was that sort of contract there, that kind of unspoken agreement, that it wasn't necessarily like a healthy relationship. It was still parasitical on the part of, the system. It was still sapping the energy of people, but it was a bit more mutually beneficial than what we have now, because that system, that contract, that agreement, that's gone. That hasn't been a thing for quite a few years now. Certainly not, while I've been old enough to work. Definitely not for the Zoomers and, Gen Alpha and all the youngsters that are going to come after them. They'll never. I caught the tail end of it. I caught a glimpse of it as it was on its way out the door. Guys younger than me, they've never seen it at all, and I don't know. I don't know if they ever will. But with all that said, the boomers do still think that is a thing. They think that agreement is still in place, and you've heard the meme online, the pull yourself up by your bootstraps and all that stuff. Probably more of an American phenomenon than it is here, but still does apply here to a certain extent. And so you do get comments from older people. They say things like, "Oh, well, you young people, you think we had it so good when we were younger. We worked for everything we had." It's like, yes, we know that you worked for everything that you had. That's because it was possible to work for things and, get what you had back then. These days, you could work the exact same amount of time, put the same amount of energy in, and it will yield, a tenth of what you got back then. So it's that's kind of a, you do get the judgments. This is sort of not imaginary. I was talking about the imaginary boomer in my mind that was judging hobbies and things. This is a more real world phenomenon where the boomers will essentially talk down to you because they simply don't understand what the world is like now. They think it's still the mid-90s or the mid-80s or something, and you can still, if you just go to work and work hard enough, you'll get the house and the car, and you'll be able to go on holiday every year and raise kids and have everything that you want. You'll be able to have people in to redecorate your house the way you want it, and you'll be able to get gardeners to come and do your garden for you if you want. That all of that. Like, I do own my own house. My fiance and I, we own a house. That was just through inheritance on her side, though. If she, hadn't, and that inheritance came through, less than pleasant circumstances, it's because Her parents had both passed away. And that was the only way we would ever, in a million years, have been able to afford a house. And even the house we got is, it took us a while to find one that was inexpensive enough to buy, with the amount of cash that she had left after various expenses, solicitors, things like that. And we only got the house 3 years ago. Well, it's 2.5 years ago. It'll be 3 years this year at some point, August, I think. But before that, I'm 36, so I was in my early 30s before we had the house. In a previous time, I would have been in my own house probably for about, 10, 12, 15 years by that point, back when it was possible to buy your own house in your early 20s. You'd probably be married by that point as well. And I had this, I had the boomer voice again telling me that, oh, you don't own a house, you don't have a new car, your car is 10 years old or whatever, you don't have all these things that we kind of associate with well-established adults, the way our parents lived. And when you don't have all that, because that's the example that's been set for you in childhood, the house, the car, the this, the that. And when you don't have all that and you're in your early 30s, there's just this that nagging voice telling you that this is wrong and you're wrong somehow. I mean, it's not in most of our control anymore. The system has readjusted itself, shall we say, to make such things impossible to acquire now. But you still have that voice of, say, somebody from, the previous generation or whatever, telling you that you're, why haven't you got all these things? And another way, this is the final way that I can think of right now off the top of my head, the final way that the internalized boomerism raises its ugly head once again is so when it comes to things like DIY or car maintenance, things like that, I don't know about you, but I wasn't really taught any of that kind of thing when I was younger. And again, in a previous time, we would have had to take on those kinds of responsibilities quite early on in life. In your early 20s, you've got a house, you've got to either have enough money to pay someone to do the work or learn how to do the work yourself. Simple things like putting up shelves or, changing the oil in your car or, decorating or, what have you, putting up curtain rails, stuff like that. And it's all stuff that I didn't know how to do because I'd had no reason to do it before. I'd either lived with my parents, where, it was my parents' responsibility to sort out all that kind of thing, or I was renting and it was the landlord's responsibility to sort out repairs and decorate and stuff like that. So I'd never learned any of that stuff. And so when you try to take on things like that, when I do anyway, I find myself being judged once again by the little boomer in my head telling me, oh, you're doing this wrong. Why can't you do this? Why can't you do this? It's like, well, in a healthier world, I would have been doing this for 15 years by this point. At 36 years old, I probably would have been, even maybe 20 years. I might have been doing it since I was a teenager. And it feels odd to be at this relatively, it's all relative, but for these purposes, we'll say this late stage in life, it's weird to be this far in and not really know how to use a drill. An electric drill. I had to teach myself how to do that because I'd never had cause to use one before. And, and another thing is, the other day I went to Halfords. In this country, Halfords is it sells car parts, stuff for bikes. You can go there and buy your bulbs and for your car, headlights and, windshield wipers, things like that, bits and bobs. Nothing heavy, you can't go there and buy a new engine or anything, but, you can buy little bits and bobs that you need for your car. I went the other day and I bought a set of headlight bulbs because the ones I've got are so dull you can't see more than 3 feet in front of you when you're driving at night. And I bought some windscreen wipers as well. Now, I went to the little touchscreen thing in the shop. You put your car's registration number in, it comes up with the make and model, so apparently you're getting the right parts. It recommends the ones. I chose the ones, I looked them over, I chose the ones that I wanted. I got them home, tried to fit them, and neither one was correct. Because that was a sort of boomerish pride in me, telling me that I needed to do it myself. I needed to fit the bulbs myself. I have fitted bulbs in my car before, but I just bought the wrong ones because this thing in the store recommended these ones, even though they were incorrect. So I could have saved myself quite a lot of hassle if I'd have just, instead of having this sort of older man voice in my head saying a real man fits his own bulbs in his car and changes his own windscreen wipers. If I hadn't have listened to that, if I'd have just had them fitted at the store, which you can do for an additional fee, then I could have saved myself, because I've still got to go back and take those back, those bulbs and windscreen wipers back, and get new ones, the correct ones. I'll have to go in and talk to somebody, which is always a bit annoying, but that's what I've got to do now. So if I didn't have that boomer voice telling me, do it yourself like a real man, then I could have saved myself a lot of hassle and some money as well. But yeah, anyway, kind of a stupid topic, but it's just something that was playing on my mind today. But yeah, if you watched to the end, thank you for watching. I do appreciate it. It's pretty cool. We've got a few comments on some of my videos that I've uploaded so far. I had some brief, interesting discussions with people, which is cool. I look forward to reading the comments on this video as well. So yeah, that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one.